So if you would have you got three elements, right? Nutrition, training, mindset.
Yep.
And obviously we added a couple more in terms of recovery and other things. But if you were to say those three, which is the one that you find the easiest? That wasn't. It was you didn't ever put any thought into it. And then what was the one you struggled the most with that required a little bit more sort of, I guess, planning or creativity on your part to keep that fresh and engaged?
I can eat really plainly, and I have my go-to meals.
Yeah.
And especially sort of starting a relationship with Lauren and noticing that she likes to eat a lot of healthy vegetables and she likes to she eats simply. It was like, hallelujah, praise the Lord, I found my soulmate, right? And so I would say the nutrition and training was straightforward for me.
Okay.
Training was never really an issue for me because I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
The issue for me was just making sure that I didn't injure myself and I didn't push myself too hard.
Gotcha.
I would say keeping the training fresh was something that I struggled with from time to time. There would be lapses in my training motivation more than my nutrition motivation.
Gotcha.
Because I didn't. Because there was also a certain point where I stopped having my coach, and it was kind of back on me. And without having someone to do my program for me and tell me my macros and what to eat and all that kind of stuff, it was back on me a little bit, which was fine initially. But then also it got a little bit like, what do I want to do in the gym today? So that side of things took a little bit of time, a little bit of struggle. And then that was probably the main one.
So what did you do with regards to that?
Initially, I just I took the variety. I took that as a bit of a win. Like, all right, I can go in and do whatever I want. I never used to do like a arm session. So then I'd go in and do like a biceps and triceps session and feel like Arnie afterwards. And then I started to put together some stuff for our clients around like some sample workouts, right?
Gotcha.
And so then what I decided to do was I'm just going to grab those sample workouts, film them, but then also try and get results just using those workouts.
Great.
So then I used that as my motivator, as my plan, as my consistency. I was like, cool, I've got a plan now, and I'm just going to stick to that for the next while and see what happens. And that honestly carried me about 8 months.
Oh, epic.
In terms of the training.
4 sessions a week.
Yep.
So break me down the sessions. What do they look like?
So it's an upper lower push pull split. So it'd be one day upper body push focused, next day lower body.
Yep.
Then next day upper body pull, next day another lower body. So I do either a quad focused leg session, then like a hammy glute focused leg session.
Yep.
And then that would be it for those 4 times a week.
Fantastic. And the sessions, roughly speaking, 30, 40 minutes?
An hour.
An hour.
Yeah, I always like to allocate myself an hour for those, especially for those initial ones, because for me, warming up with my lower back, trying to make sure everything was working.
That was going to be my next question.
Yeah, warming up with my lower back, making sure I was doing the proper stretching and getting everything sort of mobile before doing it. Getting my shoulder rolls and just like if I didn't walk to the gym, I would take 5 to 10 minutes at the gym to walk before every session, just to get blood flowing, just to warm the body up literally.
Yep.
And then whatever my training specific stretches would be before the workout, and then getting into it.
Great, love it, brother, love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so what does the day look like in terms of food? What was the go-to foods for you?
For me, it was pretty.
Because you intermittent fast.
Yeah, I would definitely fast. Like it changed over the course of it, and obviously there was it was actually quite a roller coaster of different things because of. We were traveling during that time, and 18 months is a long time, and I can't say that anything was consistent throughout the whole thing. There was a period of time where Subway was the go-to lunch.
Yeah.
Subway.
I remember that. That tour.
That was a good 6 months for me of and when we were working at WeWork as well, that was foot-long chicken strips, double meat, Old English, with hot chili and all this and whatever salads, and that was my lunch for probably 6 months. I'd say. So having a go-to, quick and easy, like convenient, high-protein lunch was always a good go-to. Because there was a period of time where I wasn't necessarily tracking as well, where I was just eating a little bit more intuitively, and I kind of just maintained for a little while.
I love intuitive eating.
Yeah. It's a trap for a lot of people. But during that time, I didn't really progress, but it was also one of those times where I was focused on other areas, and it was kind of on the back burner a little bit, but during that time I didn't go backwards because I had things like Subway to fall back on.
Yep.
And then dinner it was just a couple of staples that we just stuck to the whole time. One of them was like lean beef minced and some kind of carb, whether it's pasta or noodles or whatever else, and just mixing that together in with the same 3 or 4 vegetables. So carrot, capsicum, broccoli, and beans. every single time, be the
Yep.
same consistent thing, or it would be steak and pasta and vegetables. It would be some combination of that. So it's like meat.
Gotcha.
It was very distinct, like meat, carb, vegetables, like every time. It was
Yeah,
very, very simple.
Nice, excellent.
Either that or protein smoothies.
Gotcha.
I'd abuse the shit out of protein smoothies with blueberries.
Your go-to protein smoothie?
Is milk, protein powder, WPI or whatever it is, frozen berries, Chobani yogurt, and maybe a little bit of peanut butter if I'm feeling a bit randy. Feel like I had a bit of fats in my morning.
Nice. And you know, when you're busy, when you're on the road, when things are not working the way they're meant to, go to snacks, supplements, things that if it's not perfect, but it's good enough to get the job done.
Snacks would be Quest bars. Like there's no service station that doesn't sell some kind of sort of Quest bar or protein bar that will do the job.
Yeah.
They're huge. Beef jerky is another big one as well. If you
Yeah.
get, because it's number one, it's very chewy as well. So you're sitting there, you feel like
It takes you some time.
It takes you a lot of time.
It's like opening pistachios.
Exactly, it's like its own little protective
Yeah.
casing. It stops from eating too many. But yeah, beef jerky would be a big one as well. And then a lot of the time, just the fasting would get me through a lot of things. Fasting in the morning would generally I wouldn't have to eat till 1 or 2, so therefore there was no temptation to do anything. But as well, there's like those brekkie smoothies, the little protein smoothie snacks. So yeah, those would probably be the main ones that got me through.
I understand the intermittent fasting, obviously, but if you're listening at home and you don't know,
Yep.
why do you do intermittent fasting?
So and for the people at home, there's a bunch of different types of intermittent fasting. So intermittent fasting just means there are times like that you have sections of the day where you purposefully don't eat, and it's intermittent. So you know, it could be whatever day it is, but you intermittently have periods of purposefully not eating and then purposefully eating.
Yep.
So for me, I would do basically I would just not eat breakfast and then eat lunch and dinner.
Mhm.
And for me, it was because number one, when my calories started getting a little bit lower, it meant I could have bigger meals.
Yeah, it's
And
easier to have 2,000 calories in 2 meals than in 3.
Yeah, exactly, because then you have the reduced meals, and I preferred to eat bigger, feel fuller, and then and just forego that morning meal because I never felt like I necessarily needed it because I wasn't super hungry in the morning. It was a good lifestyle choice for me. When I wasn't super focused on tracking my calories, it was a good way for me to get results without having to track my calories. I was like, oh, won't eat breakfast and I'll just eat lunch and dinner, and that automatically cuts out 4 to 5 hours of time where I could have eaten breakfast or I could have snacked or I could have had something, but because I'm like, no, I'm just not eating till this time, it reduces the chance of self-sabotage.
100%. I love it. Let me go back to the photo here. Phenomenal photo. So, if you look at the version of you 18 months ago, what was his standards and rules around health and fitness? And if you look at the photo obviously on the right, in today, what has changed in terms of your rules, your standards? What are the key distinctions that you go, well, now is a non-negotiable, and this is just not something I would engage with, but back then I just didn't have that discipline or that sense of self?
Well, I would say there's almost no rules on the left side. On the other side, pretty much it was just like eat whatever made you feel good and forget about feeling like shit.
Right.
So it was pretty much that, and then it was like training there's like I guess ideals or risks around training. I had to be careful and made sure I didn't overstretch things. But the more I spoke to my my chiro, is like, look, you've got to go back in there and get movement back through that injured part. It's like you might be feeling pain, but it's important to still train despite, like, as long as you're not like, oh fuck, in pain, because your body needs to adapt to that movement and get stronger through that movement in order to strengthen those muscles. So there was not that necessarily that mindset on the left hand side, and it was either all or nothing. It was, if I can't do it properly, I'm not going to do it at all. It was eat for pleasure and eat whatever you wanted. Just call it bulking and deal with it tomorrow. Right. So there's no real ownership of the moment of the day to day.
Yeah. When you look at all of it, we talk about goal setting, right? And it's like, don't focus on what do you need to do, focus on who do you need to become.
Yeah.
So for you to get to the position that you're in now, with obviously a phenomenal physique and all the stuff that's happened, what do you think is the key distinction in terms of who you've had to become as a man and as someone that's a health and fitness professional? What's been that shift?
Yeah, a big part of it has been ownership and just saying, hey, like I'm responsible for my body and my health, and it's just really been a big identity shift of, no, I am the kind of person that chooses to eat these kind of foods. I am the person that chooses to train this many times a week because it makes me feel good, and yeah, that's pretty much it. It's been a big identity shift of, no, I am this person now. And I've always, to a degree, been that person, but I've never really embodied it as much as I have over this process.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm the person that I have someone to talk to about the emotional shit that's going on in my life. I've got my partner to help share that load, and when I'm not feeling 100%, go back to, and that's something I've never had in my life before that point in terms of like an intimate partnership.
Yeah.
So that's been a big factor as well.
Yeah,
just having someone to share that emotional load with, and it's not just been a cheeseburger who's been copping it.
The drive-through at McDonald's.
Yeah.
You once mentioned to me, just talking about the identity thing as well, about being associated with the person that would be interested in the food challenges and like, triple burgers and double downs and stuff like that, and you not being like, now that when you think about being that person, you don't really associate with that anymore. Yeah,
that really good point as well. I did used to be the person who would see a big meal on there or a big thing about, oh yeah, that's a challenge, or had this weird, I remember it started when I was around sort of 17, where just getting a meal from a takeaway place wasn't enough. I had to get a meal and a snack because I just wanted the variety. I'd be like, oh, I'll get the double quarter pounder meal and some nuggets, or and this and that. I was like, I just wanted the variety of it all and wanted to try it all. I also was the kind of person who would like to, whenever there's a new flavor of something came out, had to try it. I was like, oh, this is a brand new chocolate flavor. I had to try that. And I used to enjoy the double downs, the big, massive meals, and being the person who would eat a shit ton, right?
Yeah.
And more, I'm like, yeah, that doesn't really appeal to me anymore. I don't want to be, it's not who I am. I'm not the person that's just going to eat for the sake of eating. I'm not the kind of person that and I know our cousin has this kind of identity that he kind of loves and hates at the same time. Where it's like, he can eat a shit ton because he's like 100 kilos of pure muscle, right? And he can eat a lot. And he also kind of enjoys the identity of being someone who can eat a lot. But it's like, for me, I was in that for a while, and now it just doesn't appeal to me anymore.
Yeah, 100%. What if you could go back and do it all over again, right? Knowing what you know now, what if anything would you change?
I reckon I would change my training program up a little bit. I would have more of a goal and more of a progress track on my training. I reckon I would have maintained a lot more muscle mass. I mean, overall, given the circumstances of the 18 months, it did pretty bloody well for me. I would say it was kind of perfect for the times that it needed to be. But yeah, I would say that would be the big one, would be changing up the training regime and maybe introducing the strict tracking a little bit earlier.
Yep.
So the strict tracking and really getting dialed in on training and nutrition probably only 6 weeks before the photo shoot. And you guys saw, I mean, the results from that 6 weeks was like, it looked like 12 months of progress in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Because that's the effect of the last like 3 or 4 kilos. It's like everything just looks normal, shredded, right? The last little bit of the shrink wrap takes effect, and it's like, where did this come from?
Yeah. So
I would have probably introduced that. I could have introduced that honestly 12 weeks to 18 weeks earlier and still gotten there. So I would have had that impetus a little bit earlier. But apart from that, it was pretty much the journey for me to make this a long-term change as opposed to being a one-day thing.
Yeah.
The journey was what it needed to be, and I needed to be able to go through the process of having the balance and the maintenance periods when I was traveling and having a harder time, and then being able to come back in and then be more disciplined and focused, because that's essentially what I'm in right now. The last sort of 10 days has been a little bit stagnant, and I've not gone backwards, but then I need to remember, it's like, cool, that's my goal, right? At the moment, is just not to go backwards. Not to go backwards too far, back that way. Still be able to eat more, which I have been able to do, so it's kind of been a win-win. And now, after this wellness has actually gotten me sort of back into my momentum of, cool, get back into it. But it usually is that you'll have that period where you take a little bit of a mental load off and then you get back into it.
Yeah, I think that's important as well, because I know certainly from my experience, the idea, and this is what I really noticed with Jace, is that, in the final weeks, particularly leading up to the program, there wasn't really a huge shift. There was a focus, but there wasn't like, okay, cool, you are doing twice a day sessions and you're cutting all this stuff. So it's like, the day before, the day of your photo shoot and the day after your photo shoot were all pretty fucking similar in terms of that process. And I see so many people particularly when they're doing photo shoots or comps, I know I was certainly like this, right? Where it's like people almost like white knuckle it to the finish line, get that, and then crash in a heap in recovery. And then end up blowing out, and then they've got injuries and all this other stuff that their body's just been holding on until they get to the finish line, and then they rebound straight away. So for you now on the other side of it, obviously achieving a big milestone is both a beautiful thing and also a terrible thing, because now you've gone, well, fuck, I was motivated for something 18 months, and now I don't have that same level of motivation. So I know you're dealing with that at the moment. So tell us what that's like on the other side, because to be fair, most people never get to the point of achieving the goal to know what it's like on the other side of victory, to realize how painful that can be.
Yeah,
right.
And, I mean, it's been more than an 18-month journey, or I guess to get there, because it's been a goal for life, really, for years. For a lot of people that have never had those like six-pack before, and for someone who's in health and fitness, it's always kind of a goal.
Yes.
Right. It's like it's always just kind of something that you're kind of working towards. And there's times when I would go on sort of half-assed attempts to get there, but not really commit. And so it's always sort of been there. Then it's like something. It's like, oh, this is something that I guess I've wanted or been working towards for the better part of my life, in essence. And then to get there, it's like, number one, it's anticlimactic. I mean, look, it was pretty good. I got dropped off a Wagyu tomahawk and a bunch of little snacks as well, which was beautiful. So it was a bit of a celebration in that aspect, and but it was very anticlimactic. And then it was just kind of back to I feel like I had so much focus and I didn't know what to do with it. So I had all this focus that was being driven in one direction, and I was like, where do I put this? What do I do with all of this extra effort that I've been putting towards this goal that is now gone, right? So it was just a bit of a loss. So it was initially I started, and this is the process I'm going through now, is putting it towards a new training program, which I've gone through and I've done with the BioLane app, which is really, really good. Right. But basically it was like a workout builder for hypertrophy. So now I'm going for a lot more higher volume, and I'm going to be training 5 days a week. Right. And it's a new one that tells you what weights to hit. So now the focus is going to be on gaining strength, just purely for the purpose of a bit of muscle, get stronger, and also burn the extra calories that I'm doing, and training is a good thing to do no matter what. So that's where the focus is going more now, plus investment property that I need to get cracking on as well. But yeah, initially it was a lot of, well, what now? Yeah. Now what? And then all this focus that was kind of milling about. But then I just took the pressure off having to have something like that to work on, and just enjoy having a bit of free time to chill.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so taking a step back, a couple of final questions. One is, what do you see as the single biggest challenge that most people have to be able to achieve an outcome similar to what you've done? Not necessarily getting abs, that might not be the goal for people, but to being able to complete a body transformation like that over the time and effort it's taking you to get there. What do you think is the biggest challenges that most people have that they need to be aware of?
That's a good question. It's kind of, everyone's challenge will be individual, but the biggest one is I guess the ability to have those times when you're on and off, but have your off not be all the way off.
Yes.
Like have your off just be, it's like a dimmer switch,
Still be engaged.
Yeah, still be able to
the light's still on, it's just not a full. I like the dimmer switch better.
Exactly. So have their effort be like a dimmer switch, and be able to say, hey, like I'm not giving up. Just this period requires my focus to be elsewhere. It might be work, it might be a relationship, it might be whatever else is going on. Not go backwards in that time. Yeah. And then I guess to make that identity shift, a lot of people are simply doing the actions. They're not associated, or they don't want to associate into being that person yet. Yes. Because they still have the attachments to the association of who they were. Sure. And I guess I was more lucky in the fact that I was only relatively temporarily like the before photo, so it wasn't an identity that I had become too comfortable in yet. Mm-hmm. But I definitely wasn't at the end goal identity yet. So for me, I think for a lot of people, it's really identifying what that identity is for them that they're holding on to, of who they are or who they think they are, and what behaviors and things are associated with that, and then identifying that if you start to do those new behaviors, that is part and parcel of becoming a new person, and identifying really more with that. It's like, cool, well, what are the behaviors that I've been doing? Let's say you're 12 weeks in, doing a bit of an identity audit of, well, who have I been for the last 12 weeks? Well, the last 12 weeks, I've been this person, I've been this person, I've been this person, and embodying that and embracing that a little bit more, I think, is what people need to do.